Hello Call of Duty fans, welcome back. IHOLDSHIFT with you guys, doing another little bit of a news posting here for you, as there's a lot of things that have happened over the last couple of days across many fronts come Call of Duty, including competitive news, with Denial having its own issues, obviously leaks towards what might be happening with Modern Warfare 4, including a potential free-to-play model that might be coming through. We got news today that Black Ops 5 will in fact be coming in fall of 2020, as Sledgehammer Games is having some issues with their title production in their normal 3-year cycle. And then finally some updates as far as what might be happening in the OpTic situation. That's what's on T for us today. Let's go ahead and start driving things off with things Denial. Now, there have been a little bit of developments and a lot of twitlongers being posted, not only from former players of the Denial organization, but also from Overtime eSports, the group that sold their spot in the Pro League to Denial at the start of the regular season. Now, remember back, Denial had bought Overtime after the Pro League qualifier, and the rumored price, and what has seemed to be confirmed by Overtime, was that it was for 40,000 euros. At the time of the PLQ's conclusion and all of the signings coming through for Denial taking the spot and taking in arms the players of Overtime eSport, Denial had the players sign letters of intent saying that they would be paid a combined total salary of 26.5 thousand euros per month in the player's salary. Now, as the CWO regular season approached, apparently what had happened was Zach Smith, who is one of the up-and-comers with the group itself and one of the more public fronts for Denial, approached the players with contracts not outlining a specific salary due to contracts essentially needing to be filed and signed for them to be eligible to play in the Pro League. Again, this was done apparently in a temporary fashion until players could receive the applications and full confirmation that they would get their P1A visas, which essentially would allow an outside alien or foreign entity of the United States to perform at specific athletic competitions and essentially also receive compensation for their performances at these competitions. Now, yes, all those Denial players had signed those contracts, and letters of intent are not necessarily a we have to do this. It's just that we would like to do this, so this is what we propose until we can get a contract out. The contract, technically, as far as I understand, would supersede the letters of intent, but it's still really shitty to do something like that. Now, apparently, after those contracts were signed, Denial players started to make a move towards getting their visas, which of course also has to go through the Department of Denial, saying that yes, in fact, these players are going to be participating and all this information is true. Now, apparently, Denial came back and tried to reciprocate with the players, saying that they would amend those documents and have them come in to fill out the paperwork to get their visas processed. Apparently, nothing ever came of it. A couple weeks later, some of the COOs reached out from Denial to the players asking for their bank account information to start getting payments potentially to them, and nothing ever happened. Now, to kind of backtrack a touch, back in January, those letters of intent were signed, and the players of Denial had gone to an esports agent to mediate the whole situation, and the esports agent said, yeah, this looks fine, and there should be hopeful that payments should be able to come through as long as they help you with your visa processes. After several months now, they went back to the agent now looking for assistance since no one had been paid individually, and beyond that, Overtime has also come forward saying that they are making it clear that they have been seeking payment that was initially promised for the Pro League spot. None of those things have been fulfilled yet. Overtime eSports would then go to MLG for help, essentially saying that Denial is refusing to pay. MLG replied with a brief email and retraction saying that MLG does not serve as arbiters in the agreements between players and orgs, and that is very much so clearly stated in the handbook. And at this point, as Overtime was again trying to work with this with Denial, Denial was no longer dealing with them directly and instead said that you have to be dealing with our lawyers to get through this. Now, the running total of money owed by Denial at this current point is near 112,000 euros. Now, even though Zach himself has come forward and saying that he would love to be able to pay these players, but is not legally able to do so without them having visas, there have been no real kind of courtesy moves by Denial to actually reiterate that point whatsoever. And now that some players have either been moved to inactive or have been moved to another team, that makes the legal proceedings that much more complicated. Now, again, Zach had come out publicly to a couple of reporters and said that he knows that they're owed money and wants to fulfill his end of the bargain, and he does have the intent to pay, saying that we are rectifying the situation no matter what. However, shortly after all these public statements were coming through, Zach also mentioned that he will be stepping down from Denial's day-to-day activities. So, all of a sudden, this is not up to him really anymore by what we anticipate. So Denial, again, just kind of beating everybody around the bush. And when asked about the situation, how he felt personally about the money that was owed, Zach responded to the reporters of saying, it's none of your fucking business. I don't normally like to swear, but that's bold. So we're getting a little bit of a bait and switch here. Now, I will just leave this before you guys start getting in the comments and talking about how shitty this is. You got to keep in mind that Zach Smith was the guy that bought out Denial eSports name and repaid all of those initial players that were not paid from what was essentially a year and a half to 2 years ago. That teams that were being represented by the Denial eSports brand, including a previous Call of Duty team that there were some shady things that dealt with back then. And things seem to be alleviating, and maybe Denial would be getting themselves a better rep. This would seem to suggest the other side of the coin, though, because let's be honest, this does not look very promising. And for the time being, if these Denial players or former Denial players do not get these visas processed, you wonder what holdups they might face with Elevate as well. A lot of question marks here, but that's kind of breaking down what's been going on with Denial. Now, let's move forward to something a little bit more positive, or at least conversational in a positive way. Coming up in this upcoming fall, we're anticipating the next title coming forward will be Modern Warfare 4. Now, this has not been confirmed by anybody. It's just been on rumors alone, a couple of leaked screenshots, which may or may not even be real. But the big news that is officially confirmed as far as what's going on right now is that this upcoming title in fall of 2019 may include a free-to-play component. Now, Activision has never been keen to free-to-play models. Of course, they love their money. But Black Ops 4, even though it had been a very wild success on launch, it has not produced the revenue that Activision was hoping it would in the longevity of the game. Now, again, Call of Duty is still one of the biggest titles when it comes to money making in the world year to year, but at the same point, it's not a secret that the game is not exactly garnering the growth that Activision would want, especially going into a franchising year competitively for the 2020 season of the CWL Pro League. So there's potential that Activision is at least having conversations and are considering things like a free-to-play multiplayer, but things like zombies, a campaign, potential, battle royale things might be on a paid model. You might also be seeing microtransactions like we currently have in the game with the black market and things like that as a quote-unquote battle pass. But as far as we're anticipating, the conversations are outlined that the multiplayer very well might be free to play, with the other kind of extra elements being a paid model. Now, personally, I'm actually really excited to see if that would actually be true, as the game has essentially gone down to $15 on PC, but again, who cares? It's on PC, nobody's still playing it. But I think that's a kind of a tune that's really striking with Activision, that they are not getting the support they want across every single console. It is a Sony Premier title, and again, Sony has exclusivity rights with all of the first launches, so everything comes out a week early with Sony and PlayStation in specific. But not having success on things like Xbox and PC causes a lot of worry, I would say. And again, you're essentially having a three-way highway, but closing off two of those lanes and only fully utilizing one. So it gets congested and you're not able to find the revenue that you want. Now, again, going back to the Modern Warfare rumors, Sony and Activision will not actually apparently be at E3 coming up in the middle of June. And there have not been any official announcements, where typically the Call of Duty title is released a reveal trailer sometime in late April, early May. Obviously, we do not have that yet, so we are not yet even confirmed that Modern Warfare 4 will be the title, although a lot of hints have led towards the potential conclusion that it still will be that title. The biggest thing that we're seeing so far is that we are starting to see Activision talking about things along a free-to-play component, which is very, very interesting. Now, coming a little bit further forward with games that not only will be happening in the future, but a little bit further on into 2020, fall of 2020, keep that in mind. News has come forward that Sledgehammer's current state of development for their rotation of their Call of Duty is apparently a quote-unquote mess, as Sledgehammer and Raven apparently have had a couple of arguments in tension when it comes to core development ideas of the game that they would be producing for fall of 2020. Now, coming off of World War II, there were a lot of things that happened with this company, including both co-founders actually departing the company itself, leaving it in the wings to up-and-coming developers. The studio has apparently been finding a trickle effect where a couple of key developers and programmers have been leaving Sledgehammer over the last couple of years, and with the game in its current state, Treyarch has officially gotten the nod to step in and take the lead. So it will be Treyarch for this game. Infinity Ward will be producing the one coming out this fall in 2019, and then Treyarch will be taking the lead with the support of Sledgehammer and Raven Software for fall of 2020. Now, what we do know is that there was a single-player campaign in the works from Sledgehammer, and all of that was set in the Cold War era. And apparently for Black Ops 5, which is the confirmed game title for 2020, it will be set in that same element when it comes to at least the single player. You anticipate that would also be in relevancy for its multiplayer and beyond as well. So look forward to that, as apparently Sledgehammer is dealing with some internal issues not allowing them to go. Now, technically, this would be the first time since 2014, since the 3 developer cycle has started, that it will not be fulfilled, and potential question marks as far as the longevity of Sledgehammer beyond this and what will happen for the 2021 game. Would that go back to Infinity Ward, or would we potentially see Sledgehammer get another go at it? There's no really deciding whether or not that would happen. Now to the OpTic Gaming situation, a lot of rumors have been surfacing, nothing officially confirmed besides a couple of meetings that have happened, but from what we can tell, Hecz and Chris Chaney, who was one of the co-founders of the Infinite Esports Entertainment Group, are still in the running in essentially a two-way horse race for the potential bid into OpTic Gaming's complete sell-off that was publicized back in January. If you're unfamiliar with the situation, Immortals is the other group involved, and they're mostly looking to get themselves that League of Legends spot in the NALCS. OpTic, though, obviously has more to offer than just that, but Immortals having stake with the Los Angeles Valiant and a number of other teams like MIBR in the CSGO scene are not going to be able to retain a lot of the assets that OpTic have. Now, there was apparently a meeting that have happened between Immortals and Hecz, essentially insinuating that their Immortals were looking to Hecz to potentially stay on board as an Immortals employee and still take over the OpTic brand. What we've heard so far is that reports are saying that apparently Hecz and Chris, if they do not win the bid for the Infinite Esports / OpTic Gaming spot and the buyout, they would actually be looking to go into CWL franchising on their own. So all hints would say that that meeting did not likely go well, and Hecz is more looking for the potential to just buy out the OpTic roster and potentially just have them be fulfilled in the franchising spot come 2020. But again, nothing is for sure in that front because we already have 5 teams set up. There's at least going to be 7 more, if not a couple of more beyond that, depending on how many interested bidders there are. Again, the rumors are that there will be 12 teams for the CWL in 2020, but nothing would suggest that if there are 16 possible entries that it would not be 16 totals, since that was the format that we had here. But again, if you think back to Overwatch League Season 1, there were only 12 teams there, so that's what Activision was essentially proposing at the start. So as far as we know, the meeting between Hecz and Immortals probably did not go as well as we would think as far as retaining the OpTic brand, which would mean that if Immortals do win the bid, which is what we're expecting, the news should break sometime on Monday, it will be an OpTic brand, but it'll be under the Immortal wing and ownership, and who knows how long that will stand. Will they just keep the OpTic brand and let them finish out their seasons respectively for things like Gears, as well as obviously Call of Duty? But beyond that, we're also anticipating that if Hecz and Chris Chaney do not win the bid for the OpTic Gaming buyout, they would be able to try to put themselves in for a bid for the CBL franchising with something new. So that's kind of your updates for you guys. A lot of things to kind of go over news-wise. Coming up beyond this, we'll be doing more of an in-depth look at what's to expect for week number 8 of the CWL. 2 games on Monday with 4 following up each on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Betting breakdowns, predictions, other evaluations coming forward. We also just finished our power rankings video, so if you want to take a look at that, it's in our previous videos. And until next time, hope you guys keep holding it down. Later, bye-bye.